laptops, iPads, cell phones, video games. Oh my gosh, we're killing our kids with all the screen time. Or hey guys, welcome to another world-class episode of the Church Media Guys Show. If we've not met, my name is Dave Curley, and I am the founder of ChurchTrainingAcademy.com, which is a place where you and I and other ministry-minded people all come together to learn how to use and exploit media and technology so we can take the gospel to the world, to the internet, to the great digital beyond. Oh, sorry, I was just getting a little dramatic there. With me, as unusual, is a fantastic co-host, the only person that I would rather have today than Justin, the lovely and talented Miss Jeanette Yates. Hey, how are you?
Hello, I'm great and very, very excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to join you today. Of course, I think Justin's awesome too, but I'm glad to be able to be here with you.
I am too. For those of y'all who are wondering, where's Justin? This is 2 weeks in a row. Justin last week was doing his CPR training and doing all that sort of stuff, and today he's got a business lunch, so he couldn't join us. So I am really thrilled to have Jeanette here. She's an old friend. She's a new old friend, I guess you could say. And
yes.
She's a church communicator like Justin and I are, and she has graciously decided to shirk every responsibility that she has and hang out with us today.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Hey, Jeanette, do you take pictures with your cell phone?
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
The camera on your phone, what phone do you have?
I have it's the iPhone, or is it the 10, the X?
The X Max something, 10
yes.
X Max, whatever,
yes.
the whole thing. Okay. Yeah,
I have the one.
Okay, great, fantastic, yay. It's got a really good camera on there. I've got a Moto X4, which has got a great camera. In fact, both of us have the dual lenses, so we can do the distance
yes.
shots and the depth of field and all that kind of stuff. So our cameras on our phones are great. Now, do you do any photo processing or doing anything like that, filters and changing the colors and doing all that sort of stuff?
Sometimes, I haven't really found, I've heard a lot of recommendations for different ones, and I have a hard time using them.
Okay.
With any kind of effectiveness. So I tend to just let phone tell me what's best and have it
just kind of go auto and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Or if I'm uploading it to Instagram, I'll use their filters, so,
sure.
But I really I've heard a lot of great things about a lot of different ones, but I just can't make
and there's a lot out there. And
yeah,
today I want to let everybody know about one that's actually, it's been around for a long time. In fact, Google, it's owned by Google. It's called Snapseed, and it has been around since, I don't know, maybe the iPhone 3 or something like that, when the camera started getting good. Is when it started coming out. It's called Snapseed. It was a company that was its own company, and then Google bought them, and then Google took a lot of the guts of Snapseed and put it into the Google Photos app, so that you can increase the structure, you can change some of the coloring and do all the great stuff that you can do with Google Photos. But it's also a standalone app, and it is really cool. It runs on both platforms. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can obviously the basics. I mean, you can do the cropping, you can do the color, you can do the sharpening, you can do the vignetting, you can do the structure, you can do the high dynamic range stuff. You can do all that, but you can also use some more advanced tools. They've got a tool for doing blemish removal. So I could if I had a picture of you on my phone, and it's oh, she's got a freckle up here, or I've got is it on this side? Yeah, see this stupid thing? This is one of those what age spots or liver spots or whatever that happen when you get old and you get a freckle on your face that you can't explain. So you can go in there and zoom up and then go over it and then get rid of it. It's really cool. There's even a filter on there, and for the pro tip video, I'll be walking through this and showing you guys everything. But you can actually reposition the face a little bit. So like if the face is, like if you're looking over at the other camera, two people taking a picture, and you're looking over at the other camera instead of looking at the camera you're supposed to, you can actually like adjust the person's face so that it's looking where it needs to look, and you can like make their smile a little bit
and
more
it
of a
has like
smile.
a smush on it.
Yeah,
like this.
it's funny because when you do it, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you're going within the confines of the head. You're moving the face within the confines of the head, and sometimes it looks really weird. You guys will see that when I show you. It looks really weird, but other times it's really cool because it's like you can just sort of make that little adjustment that needs to be made, and you can like take a little smirk and make it a little bit more of a smile. Anyway, it's really cool. It's called Snapseed. It's free. It's made by Google, and it runs on both platforms. It's really cool. So if you take pictures and you want to kick them up to the next level and have some really cool tools, then check out Snapseed.
And now for our feature presentation.
Folks, I'm a parent. I know a lot of you out there are parents. If you're not a parent, but you're working in the church, maybe you're a youth director, maybe you're a student minister of some kind, and there seems to be if you troll Facebook for any length of time, and you follow some different parent groups or church groups or something like that, you are seeing all this. I call it FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People are going crazy about screen time and how we're ruining our children. We're turning them into little robots. We're doing all this kind of stuff. Jeanette, have you been seeing this kind of stuff?
Well, yes. I mean, I have two teenage boys, mm-hmm. And so I've been kind of hooked in. The algorithm knows that I'm a parent, so it is filling my feed with all of these different parenting blogs and parenting articles. And one of the things that weighs heavy on me is this idea of all the damage that my children are suffering because
the irreparable damage.
Yes, the brains are melting, much like in the 50s and 60s when my parents were watching television and their brains were melting as well.
Oh, yes.
And so I, have had this really big struggle in my life, partially because, I love my kids, I'm a parent.
Right.
And another part is like, I'm in this job. Like, my job is to get people to engage with the church where I serve on social media, on screens. I want them to go to YouTube and watch a video. I want them to, share something on Facebook. And so I've been kind of wrestling with this. And so it's been something I've been thinking about and talking with people about and researching mm-hmm. for a little bit of time, just to try to wrap my head around what this all means, what is true and what is just fear mongering. And so that's what I've been kind of focused on in my own parenting. I can't solve all the parenting problems in the world, but like this is one I feel like I need to at least investigate as a responsible digital parent, or one that wants to be.
Are you the communications director at your church?
Yes.
Okay.
And I also consult with other churches, so I'm all in.
Right. So here we are. Like you said, we want to increase digital engagement. We want to increase screen time, engaging with our brand, as it were, our church mm-hmm. or the ministry that we work for and stuff. But then we've got all these other things out there that are saying that you're a bad parent and that your kids, brains are bleeding. And we do see, I think, boring through all the junk down to the truth, we do see some levels of antisocial behavior or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the they're going to be a terrorist kind of antisocial behavior, or they're going to be a sociopath kind of antisocial behavior. But we, with the communication that we do so much on our devices, whether texting and messaging and Snapchat and all that sort of stuff, I do see a lack of interpersonal skill development in a physical sense. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm. I know your kids are special.
I know.
I have to be honest, just when I think, and there's plenty of times where I'm like, I can't believe my son, he's in his room. He should be out here with us as a family, and I tell this story sometimes when I'm having this conversation. There was a period of time where I was really worried. My son just refused to have a conversation. He was always trying to leave the table, and he wouldn't even watch television with us, which I know is another screen, but still it's something,
right.
And I was like, you know what, if he didn't, it's that phone, if he didn't, it's our fault for giving him a phone. We should take away the phone so that he will interact more with us. And we took the phone away, and guess what happened?
He stayed in his room and read comics or something.
Yeah. He didn't come talk to me.
Right.
Because he was mad at me. And so, not that there's never a time that you should, take away something from your child or a phone, but what I started to do is, instead of using that as just every punishment, because really you want to, when they've done something wrong, you want to hit them where it hurts. So you're like, I'm going to take away your phone. I'm going to take away the screen.
Right. Take away your friends.
Yeah. And that is a good point, Dave, that you said. Sometimes I think I'm just taking a phone away, but really I'm taking away a social interaction that he has with his friends. And so it's a different mindset to him. This was not what I was thinking I was taking away from him was not how he was thinking of it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we had that conversation. But to answer your original question, for the most part, I feel like my kids do a great job. Now, they have to be sometimes prompted, we're getting ready to go to this family event. Right. You are not going to take out your phone for the next 2 hours.
Right.
But I would also say that when that is a guideline that we've set for them, my son would want me to mention that should be a guideline that I set for myself as well.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. How about that?
So, yeah. So, but when, I feel like I'm been blessed with kids who, when focused on their goal of, we're going to spend time with grandma, you are going to spend time with grandma. Right. That is what they do. Yeah. They're able to do that. And I know that, not every kid is even like that. And nor do I think we should expect every kid to always feel super comfortable, because even before phones and digital distraction, there were kids who were awkward in social situations.
Oh, sure. Totally.
And they,
yeah.
And so
we all knew the nerd who couldn't have a conversation with, with any female of any kind in the hallway. They'd practically wet themselves. They could not interact like that. And it wasn't because they were on their screens. It was because they had social anxiety or anything like that. And their escape was in their books or in their movies or the comics or something like that. So I think this is a problem that's been going on through history.
Right. And so, that's one of the things that I've, started to realize or started to look at is okay, well, we want to blame everything right now on this digital device. But I think we need to peel back the layers, because of course, I'm not saying that there's not, you can find research that backs up anything.
Oh, sure.
But there are people who have experienced that. We hear of this all the time of, bullying and all these things that are occurring. But I think that if we just are saying, if we didn't have this, if we didn't have social media, if we didn't have these smartphones, this stuff wouldn't be happening. Right. It's very, very, it's oversimplifying the issue, and it's not getting to the heart of the matter. Yeah. And as Christians and as, and yes, to some extent, we're talking to people who are either working with children or teens or have children or teens. Mm-hmm. But really, this is something that we all need to look at. Mm-hmm. We all need to be starting to think about our own discipleship and growth in the area of what does it mean to walk through our lives as Christians. When we think about that all the time, we want to know what it means to live our faith. Well, we've been talking about that for centuries.
Yeah.
Now we have to talk about that and include the digital space as well. So as individuals, we have to do that. And then also as parents. So, or people who are working with children.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm kind of, kind of trying to step into. And I want to tell our listeners or watchers that I don't have it figured out.
Right.
But I think it's a conversation we need to have. And that's why I'm hoping that more and more people will engage in this conversation and just, ask ourselves, how are we going to train up a child in the way they should go? How are we going to be role models for how to be a good disciple for Christ in our real lives and in our social lives online?
Right. One of the things that you said earlier that we tend to want to blame everything on this stuff, on the on whatever the tool is. We're blaming it all on social, and it's an oversimplification. There's that concept of oversimplifying, and I remember this from my childhood. My parents remember it from their childhood. As parents, as youth leaders, what have you, as humans, we tend to want to look for a line, and we want to simplify and dumb a very complex conversation down to this baseline. You can't see rated R movies until you're 17.
Right.
Okay. You shouldn't listen to rock music because it doesn't honor God. Okay. Okay. There's children shouldn't have phones until they're 14.
Right.
When you oversimplify stuff like that, when you make these rules, these lines, trying to, and to me, it's more of that virtue signaling stuff that's going out there. It's like, well, the rule in our house is you can't have a cell phone until you're 14. Well, that's stupid because, hey, don't have a landline. Okay. And then, I work and Kat works. And so if a daughter comes home from school, gets dropped off latchkey style, the way you and I were raised, she doesn't have a phone and she's 13 and the house starts to go on fire. Well, but she doesn't have a phone until she's 14. I mean, it's stupid in just across the board. It's same thing with the, you can't see a rated R movie till you're 17 or something.
Right. Well, and I think that starts because of fear. Right. Well, and we're afraid as parents that we're going to screw up our children.
Right. Just like our parents screwed us up, right?
Right. And we want by our children. It all comes it comes from love, but it also comes from fear sometimes. So I think, one of the things that is important to me is that, I think we need to stop having a spirit of fear when it comes to parenting in the digital age. And remember that, the Bible reminds us in 2 Timothy 1:7 that we don't have a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and self-discipline.
Right.
And I think if we remember that the smartphone or the screen doesn't have the power,
right,
we have the power of Christ in us.
Right.
We can harness that power, can use the power that we have, like that super, the Holy Spirit power, but also like we're in control here.
Right.
We are in control of our own habits, and of how to teach our children, which is that second part, teaching our children how to have control and self-discipline.
Right.
And, so I think that is what
this is a tool this is no different than a hammer.
And so we, how the tools available in our world, the distractions that are around us, there's always been something that distracts us from focusing on Jesus.
Right.
Since Jesus was here walking around earth, there's been distractions. For the Pharisees, it was the distraction of rules. Tell me the rules so I can follow them.
Mm-hmm. I like
and that was
clap
just
when you say that.
and that was distracting them from actually being able to encounter Jesus face to face.
Right.
There was a period of time where people were worried about books
Yeah.
being a distraction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Those
Whatever it
evil books.
is that's new and misunderstood and not, not fully known, it is scary and can be a distraction.
Right.
But what man or the enemy wants to use for bad, the Lord can use for good.
Absolutely.
And as a church communicator who recognizes, when I think about social media, I don't think about it as this like horrible place, but like I get sucked in. It's so terrible. I think it's like, there's this big, huge country, Facebook,
Right. Yeah.
Facebookville, and it has 2.5 billion people. And, everyone is just trying to connect with other people, find out more about life, feel connected, feel liked or loved, make people laugh. I think the church should be there. And I think as a Christian, since I'm there, I should represent the church well. So from a church communicator perspective, I'm thinking, okay, well, how can the church be a positive, be the salt and light? And then as an individual, I'm thinking, how can I be the light of Christ on social media? And I want to practice those professionally and personally, but I also want to teach my children to do the same. So through, did this digital discipleship, like let's disciple, let's be discipled ourselves, and disciple our children, which brings me to something that you and I were talking about before we started sharing with everyone else.
With the globe, with all the people on their screens.
But the great thing is, yes, the Bible, the words in the Bible, what was going on, that was written not in our time. And yet we've managed over the past 2,000 years to take principles and apply them to our current life. And there's no reason we can't do that now. It's not about we don't need a set of rules that tell us not till 14, only between the hours of, 2 and 5 on
whatever,
Saturdays or whatever.
Right.
We don't need those kind of rules. Now, yes, I'm all for boundaries. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Like, you can have but what your guidelines for in your home might be different that are in my home, but we can follow principles of appropriate behavior. So,
that's the key. The principles are the same. We, as concerned parents, we're always worried about cyberbullying, and we don't, cyberbullying is an amplification. Okay. It can be an amplifier, a multiplier. Okay. The core is bullying. Okay. It's being a butt crack to somebody. Okay.
Right.
It's being a jerk. Okay. So that is the core that we should be. We don't need to teach our kids, hey, don't pick on somebody on Facebook. Okay. Don't pile on with other people. No, we teach them, don't pile on in real life. Okay.
Right.
So when your friend is getting picked on by somebody else, you are to be the one who steps in between your friend, keep them at your back, and stands there and lets the other person wail on you, or you stop it or something. You stop the bullying. You don't pile on to the bullying. When you understand that principle, protecting other people and speaking to other people the way you would like to be spoken to, then it's going to come out online. It's going to come out at the movie theater. It's going to come out at the mall. It's going to come out in a church business meeting. It's going to come out in Sunday school. It's going to come out on the playground, across the board. That's the principle. We're worried about porn. Okay. When I was growing up, we didn't have the phones. We didn't have stuff like that. We had dirty magazines, and we had HBO after midnight or something like that. So
Cinemax After Dark.
Cinemax After Dark. Exactly. So what did my parents do? They said, don't watch rated R movies. And they said, don't watch porn. Don't look at dirty magazines. Okay.
Right.
And if I looked at a dirty magazine, if they found one underneath my mattress or something like that, I got in trouble, and I got explained about why objectifying women is really bad, and it can mess up the way you perceive women and later in life with your wife and with girlfriends and all that sort of stuff. So they explain this principle about honoring women and honoring God so that later in life while it is easier to do it and stuff like that, there's this thing ingrained in me that says, hey, I don't do that. You know, and it's the same thing we have to teach with our kids, whether it's too much television, whether it's bullying, whether it's porn, whether it's the way we talk to each other, whether it's any of these principles. That's the stuff that we have to be teaching in Sunday school, teaching in youth group, teaching in family life groups, teaching in our home groups and all that sort of stuff. It's those principles. This is just a tool. This is no different than a telephone. This is no different than a computer or a radio or your car or anything else that you can use for good or for bad.
Well, and that kind of brings us back to our thing that we were kind of talking about, this idea that like the screen time is bad. Like how much time is our children, on the screens, and we want to blame the screen.
Like having an LCD screen, or back in the day, we had the phosphorus light, writing on a thing. Like that is it's bad for your eyes. You'll go blind. Right. Don't sit too close.
So, one of the things, and this is kind of what started me down this whole rabbit hole of the whole thing is, you see them on Facebook all the time. This whole idea about the new study out that says that kids are spending this much time on screens and video games, and it's rotting their brains. And, we're going to have antisocial, people that,
they're waging war on Canada now.
Right. So, and I'm like, okay, if I believe that staring at a screen for 3 hours a day is bad for my child, then do I count the 3 hours of screen time they're staring at it at school?
Right. The reading that they're doing.
Right. I was sharing with you earlier, one of my sons attends a school where all of their textbooks are digital. Mm-hmm. They're provided an iPad at the beginning of the school year. They rent it. Mm-hmm. And it has, some firewall stuff set up, so it's not super easy to get everywhere, but it is, it's a digital device. Sure. And all of their textbooks are on there. They take notes, they watch videos, they communicate with their teachers, their email system is on there, all of these things. So throughout the day, in every single class, not just the one computer class that they take, because he also takes one of those. The only time he's not on his iPad is when he's in his computer class, he's taking digital technology. I'm so proud. Kids. Anyway, and then he comes home and he's got one assignment for math. He's got to go to this platform and then after he's done with that, he wants to play video games.
Right.
So am I going to go, oh no, you only have 30 minutes of video game time because screens are bad. And if we have any more than 30 minutes,
your eyes are,
because he just looks at me like I'm a moron because he's already been on the screen for 8 hours.
Exactly.
And meantime, what is mommy doing? I'm at work all day on my screen, tweeting, planning, strategizing, creating, Facebook, create digital. And then I come home and I just want to go watch
The Punisher.
Watch I was going to say, can I say that? I want to go watch The Punisher. Yes. And that, and that is what I want to do.
Right. You want to go binge on something. Right.
Yeah. And probably I'll have that on and my screen in my lap continuing to create my graphics. Right. And so if I have decided that screen time is not what I want for I don't want my children to use screen time to zone out.
Right.
I don't want to use it to zone out. Then I have to be responsible enough to say, as a family, we are not going to decompress by using screens. We're going to decompress using something else.
Okay. So what is that? What is that other else? Because
I don't know, because I'm watching my Netflix. So
and see, and that's the thing. That's the thing. We're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on the tool instead of what the thing is. The reality of the situation is that your kid needs to read. Your kid needs to watch videos and take notes and learn things and then regurgitate it in a test and apply principles that he's learning. in his life.
We could have a whole other topic about that.
Exactly. So he needs to do that. Okay, that's called school. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's 1985 and you and I are sitting in 7th grade, history class, and we're watching a film about the Auschwitz concentration camp and taking notes and then being tested on it and then reading about it in chapter 7 of the book. Okay, he's doing the exact same thing.
Right.
It's just that he's doing it on a very handy little device. So when it comes down to the zoning out, how did you and I zone out? We sat down and watched MacGyver after dinner.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is like a lot of these articles that are coming out that are scaring parents half to death, they're not talking about the school.
Right.
Some of these same groups that are coming out with these articles that are fear, these fear tactics about all this, these video games and screen time and blah, 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 YouTube. Oh, YouTube.
YouTube's the button.
I know. Hi, YouTubers. We love you.
Absolutely, we do.
We love your watching. We love you watching. We love you creating things.
Yes.
But
we are you.
Yeah. Nobody wants to say that the school computer is bad. We're just going to say the home computer is bad. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not.
That's a load of crap.
That's what started it all for me. I was like, I don't believe that.
Right.
And now again, I know I might get added on the Twitters. I know I have read the articles. I've looked at the studies. I've seen all the things.
You spent a lot of screen time researching.
Maybe not all of the things because, the internet is a bottomless pit of information. But I do know that an anecdotal story about one child that had to go that, didn't handle the screen time very well and decided, got addicted or what, that's a horrible story. I'm not doubting the veracity of that story, but that is an anecdotal story.
Right.
I can just as easily, and I can tell you an anecdote. I have lots of anecdotes that are positive.
Sure.
But the point is, those are both anecdotes.
Right.
So we can't base our own decision making, our own parenting on what somebody else said is best.
Right.
What we have to do.
If you've got a friend that's a roaring drunk, that doesn't mean that if you have a margarita, you're going to be a roaring drunk. No, it means you got a friend that's got a problem.
Right.
That's what that means.
And so, we have to, again, it's all about remembering, our principles, our world, our Christian worldview, having that be the lens by which we look at. Now, is the screen time, whether, and it may be the school screen time or the child's screen time at home. It may be the phone or the video game in the system. If anything is distracting from their ability to be able to sit in worship, participate in, prayer time,
it becomes an item.
If they're watching something and then using bad language or blah, 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 all of that is part, of something that needs to be addressed. But, we don't have to say no screens,
right?
No Netflix, no YouTube. My kids are like, we don't even watch Netflix, Mom.
No,
whatever.
it's not the tool's fault.
Right.
It's not the hammer's fault that the window got broke. It's you taking the hammer to the window.
Right. And so I just think as parents, as Christians, as people who are working with youth or around youth, and even if you're like, I don't have kids, I don't like to be around them, I'm not going to, as a responsible person, we have to address how we are using the tool. And it's okay to say, I'm using this tool to decompress.
Sure.
But we have to acknowledge that. But we have to be good disciples in real life when we're talking to the person at the gas station or at the grocery store or, at the waiter at the restaurant. We have to be good disciples there, and we also have to be and good friends. Like when we're with our friends, we have to be good friends. There's, ways that we treat people around us in real life. That is the same that has to happen online. And so I think if we're practicing that, we are in a much better position to be able to speak to generations below us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
the number one thing my son said today when I told him I was going to do this, and he's like, "Oh, that's your gig." He said, I just wish that the people telling me to get off my phone would get off theirs.
Right. Yeah. And that's that. I think, when you pull it into like the analog world, you and I and everyone always reminisces about the good old days and how it was so much better when we were younger in various aspects. How we had better relationships with our parents, and we weren't on these screens and all this sort of stuff. But the reality is, when you're on your screen in a social situation, and like if you and I were sitting at Starbucks and we're having our conversation or doing something like that, and I pick up my phone and start paying attention to it instead of paying attention to you, that's me being rude. That's
right.
That's
would be rude. That's not the phone.
Right. That would be that would be exactly the same as if it was 1987 and you were at the mall and we were having a conversation and someone else walked up, and in the middle of you talking, I turned around and started having a conversation with them, completely ignoring you. Or while you're talking, I pick up my Walkman and put the headphones on and start blaring the music. That's me being a butt crack. That's rude. So you go back to that principle. So the thing I want people to understand is that all of this stuff is just a tool. Okay? And we think we have this idea in our head that our kids, we don't have these great relationships with our children. We don't communicate with our children. We're losing our children because they're on there watching YouTube and because we're on here watching Netflix and all this sort of stuff. What was it like when you and I were growing up? We were talking about this earlier. We had these, we didn't have all these screens and all that sort of stuff. So what was our relationship with our parents like? It consisted of what?
Me not talking to them. I can tell you that right now.
Right. We were teenagers. We weren't having these deep, meaningful conversations with our parents because we were teenagers.
And I didn't have a phone to ignore my teenagers. I didn't have a phone to ignore my parents at dinner time.
Right.
So I just ignored them.
Right. You just sat there quietly and ate and then got up and left.
Yeah. And I would be like, all the time.
Exactly.
Like all the time.
Right. You were being rude to their face.
Right. Like in your face. Like, and you can't even blame a smartphone.
And what did they do on Saturdays? We would get up and eat our cereal and be watching cartoons and stuff, and they would come in and they would cut the TV off and have an afternoon of meaningful, deep, relationship building with us.
No, they would say, get out. Right. Get out of the house.
Right. You're a Goonie. Go be a Goonie. Go with your friends, get on your bikes, and go have an adventure.
Goonies! Oh, yes.
Yes, we'll see you at dinner. That kind of thing. That's the way it was. So it's really not any different, except now we actually have things that our kids want to come and show us. My daughter, my 13-year-old, constantly throughout the course of the day is coming in here and showing me a funny meme. She's showing me something, and we're talking about it. We're giggling about it, and we're looking at the next one, and we're giggling. I think we're having better social engagement and one-on-one time than we would be if it was 1987.
So this happened recently. This is a fun little story. So my father-in-law got tickets to the Peach Bowl up in Atlanta.
Ah, yes.
The
football.
And took my sons, and so they were going to go. And then at the last minute, my husband and I got tickets, but they weren't in the same place.
Nice.
So we were all, like our whole family, like the four of us were going to be up there, but my kids were going to be with my father-in-law and I was going to be with my husband. So we're at the game, and the whole time we're watching the game, but we're also like chatting with each other on our devices and like finding each other and waving and taking pictures. And it was so fun. And at the beginning of the game, Andy Stanley was there to say the prayer, like the prayer of the game. And of course, like I am freaking out because it's like rock star to me.
Right.
So while like during the prayer, like I'm praying, but of course my son wasn't.
Right.
He was taking a picture of the screen of Andy Stanley, and then he posted it on Instagram and was like, my mom just freaked out because, this is her favorite. And I just thought that was so fun because, number one, without technology, my kids would not know who that is.
Right.
Number two, something my son knows about me because of technology is that, I listen to this person, I value his opinion and his insights. Mm-hmm. And then to be able to share that moment with me, like he was excited for me because that person was there. Does that make sense? Like that was a moment that was like,
there's a
enhanced.
Deeper level to your relationship than would be possible unless you guys were just constantly sitting down talking to each other and driving 1,000 miles to go to his church,
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And so, I don't know, like, I just feel like I can give you countless examples like that where like, there's sometimes I have some of the hardest conversations with my kids through texting. Now, does that mean I don't follow up later? Obviously I do. But, there's times where my older son, especially who's in high school, he just can't say some things to me, to my face.
Right.
And I'm not talking about mean things. I'm not, he's not like a jerk, but there's just some things that he
doesn't want to bust out crying in front of you or for whatever.
Right.
You're right. Exactly.
And he's able to say that through texting, and I'm able to do something that I'm not great at all the time when we're face to face, which is to be thoughtful.
Take a breath
about my response.
Right.
And not freak out and all those things. And so, to me, to your point, it's the principles, it's, not trying to like whitewash our past, the nostalgia of it all, but to take the principles that we know, truth is truth.
Exactly.
And, what God wants for us and our family is that we would be united in Him first, and then with each other. And so, we can use technology as a tool to do that if we're intentional. Just like we have to be intentional about if we do quiet time with our family or whatever, we have to be intentional about this. And so this is just another element of adding to that part of discipling our children. And like I said before, the thing that's a little bit more difficult is, for years and years and years, there was kind of like a method of discipling your children. You do the quiet time, you do the family prayer. It was the same, basically.
Right.
Now we're adding this component, but we don't have decades and history, like ton of generations to show us where to go. We're having to lead that.
Right.
If we don't teach ourselves how to walk through the digital world as Christians and then raise our children up, then they're not going to be in a position to teach their generations below them.
And one of the ways that we teach them is by letting them engage with all of this, because it just, I look at it as like the drinking thing. If you don't, like drinking and dating and that sort of stuff, if when you're under the protection of your house and under your parents' protection and under their guidance, you need to be able to make mistakes.
Yes.
You need to have a girlfriend and have the freedom to make the mistake of being a jerk to her and her breaking up with you, and now you have to deal with that. You need to understand that there is alcohol out there, and that it may taste good, it may taste bad, but the core thing is that being drunk is never okay. You need to understand that and learn that inside the structure and the safety of the home, so that when you are turned loose on life, and you are making all your own decisions, and I'm a big boy and you can't tell me what to do and all this other garbage like that, you don't fall prey to, I've never had a girlfriend, I've never had a drink, and now all of a sudden all my friends are drinking and stuff like that, and I'm going to taste it, and I don't understand the concept of self-control. So, because it's never been modeled to me, I was just told that this was bad, and I'm on my own, so I can do it on my own now. So pass me the beer. You see what I'm saying? That sort of stuff. You go crazy,
Right.
because you're young and your brain is not completely fully formed.
So it requires
yet,
more of us. You know,
Right.
it requires us to do. And we were talking about this earlier, like
parenting.
You know, and we want an app that we can put on our kids' phones and be able to.
No.
And there are good ones out there, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I think sometimes when we have something that promises to, like, you know, kids lock, or, you know, I don't know if that's
Solve
even
the
one,
problem
but,
for us.
you know, like this, you know, kid cage, you know, this, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to put this hedge of protection around our children, and then they're not going to mess up. What we do, two things, we're not, what you were just saying, we're not really training them how to walk out there, but another thing that we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for a false sense of security.
Right.
So we're not actively checking the phone because I've got the app that's going to ding if something weird's going on.
Right.
Well, you know, the kids can figure out how to get around that.
Sure.
And so I'd rather, you know, you ask me, what's the app you use? I use my eyeballs on their phones.
Right. Yeah.
And
I log in and check their Chrome
I may
history.
go a long time without doing it.
Right.
But then I may do it several times in a week.
Right.
Because, you know, I want to, and a lot of times, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm not looking for, I don't think, you know, my kids are good. They've been having digital for a long time, but, you know, I'm not always looking for, like, the, you know, the super scary thing.
Right.
I'm looking for how are they interacting?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? You know, one of the things that I try to do myself on my own platforms, but also try to encourage my kids to do, is, you know, instead of going, you know, kids, a lot of the, you know, their worth is based on, like, how many likes do I have or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, instead of going to Instagram to see how many likes you have, what I want you to challenge yourself is go to Instagram and go like 3 posts, go comment on 3 posts,
Mm-hmm.
and go, you know, DM somebody to let them know something, but it has to be nice, you know, kind, encouraging words. And if you're going with the idea of, like, who can I, like, you know, what do I want to do? And of course they'll like way more than 3.
Sure.
They may not comment, though, because the liking is more passive. But if you say, no, I want you to comment, I want you to say something nice. Even if they're the girl or the person is asking for, you know, like, are these shoes cool? You know, yes, it's a dumb question. I don't know. You just like it.
Right.
It's okay, you know, comment. And you don't
Engage,
really have to love the shoes to say, those look great on you, or whatever.
Because you would be doing that in real life if they walked up to you and said,
right,
what do you think of these new shoes, like that? Even if they were horrible, you would be I hope you would be a nice person and say, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, you know, when we start looking at social media as a way that we can encourage other people and be for them, then that takes a little bit of that selfish, like, me. And, you know, side bonus is the more posts that you like and comment on, those people are going to start doing that to you. We know that from studying communications,
right? Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know, so we know that, like, from a technical standpoint, that's true, but then that it personally can be true too. And so, like, there's going to be a byproduct of, you're going to get more likes and comments because people like to comment on people's posts that have commented on them. You know what I'm trying to say?
So I guess the net for this whole discussion, Jeanette, is basically for us to be active parents. Don't cede our responsibility to an app to lock our kids' phones and stuff. Let's just go ahead and raise our children. You know, take the responsibility that God's given us and be the parent. I guess and
that may mean you have to shut down screen time. That may mean you have to put an app on your phone, but it may not mean that.
Right.
And it's probably not going to mean only that.
Right.
So,
and again, it's not a rule. It's not this. There's not this lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator in this whole thing, the rule, the guide, the thing is be a parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or be a youth leader, be wherever you are in that kid's life, be that role and take an active an active part in it. That's what the rule is. And then whatever
Right.
tools you need to help in those situations, stuff, use those tools.
Exactly.
You know, and
exactly.
I think just circling back to what you said at the beginning, talking about your kid, when you're like, I'm taking your phone away, you know, that was, you know, when we were growing up, that was when our parents came in and they took away our Walkman. You know, they said, you can't have your Walkman for a week, you know, or you can't, you know, you can't, whatever the thing is, you can't play your video game, you know, no Nintendo for a week, that kind of thing. But it's not that case anymore. You know, taking away, you know, the Xbox, you know, or locking them out of the Netflix account or something, that's one thing. But when you take away their phone, you are taking away their communication device. My daughter, my 13-year-old, her best friend is Ellie. And they used to go to our church, and her and her family, and we're good friends with them, and we love them. They're wonderful people, and they used to live 10 minutes away from us. They now live an hour away from us, okay? So when you and I were growing up, that was it. We would make a phone call here and there, and we may never see them again until they came back to visit their grandma or something, you know, but that relationship kind of stopped. That was just the way it was. Now.
But it doesn't have to now.
It doesn't have to now. And so now, you know, she's loaded with screen time. 3 hours of that in any given evening is her and Ellie being on FaceTime, walking around, goofing off together. She's got her on her phone while she's working on her homework, and they're working on their homework, and they're doing study group together, that kind of thing. So it is communication. So we have to be very careful, and I want to reiterate this. We have to be very careful when we are taking away their phone or doing. You are basically putting them in solitary confinement. When we were growing up, it would have been being locked in our room and not being allowed to communicate with anybody except physically at school and physically at church. And that was the severe punishment. That was the you've been smoking, you've been drinking, you robbed a liquor store, and we don't want you to go to prison, so we're locking you in your room. You know, that was like before they sent us off to the military camp or something, you know? So we can't do that with our kids. And by the way, that goes with the Xbox as well. We have to remember that our video games, you know, while, you know,
they are more interactive than
very interactive. They are groups
a little bit more than the Pac-Man.
They're groups of people. Exactly. It's not the Pac-Man. It's you know, my pastor and me and our family pastor and a couple of our buddies, you know, hop onto, you know, Xbox and we play this game together or something like that. We got the headphones on and we're all talking to each other and we're having guy time while we're running around killing ogres or whatever, that sort of thing. You know, it is a communal thing, and it is, you know, so that would be like saying you can't go and, you know, play softball with the youth group. You know, we got to keep these things in perspective. It's not just taking the device away. It's inhibiting.
Yeah, if you told me I couldn't talk on the phone as a teenager, that was a small portion of my social interaction.
Because you were still
nowadays it's a lot bigger, because whether it's, you know, distances are farther, you know, with friends like that, or, you know, my son goes to a magnet school and our county is the biggest county in the United States, I think, Duval County. And so I know,
look at us.
I know, we're so fancy, but, you know, so he has kids, you know, friends that live all over the place that literally would take, you know, 90 minutes to get to, depending on the time of day. And for him to be able to communicate, and, you know, he moved to a different school when he became a middle schooler, and as did all his other friends. So they're all scattered. And so, you know, being able to stay connected with them is something very important. But I feel like, you know, I don't have the answers to all this. Am I a perfect parent in this area? Heck no. But I do want to be diligent and not give up. I don't want to just be so afraid that I give up on this and then send my children out to be chewed up by the wolves. You know, I want them to be warriors. I want them to be lights. I want them to be, you know, if my son ends up being a YouTuber, I want him to be the best YouTuber in the world. Watch out, everyone. Here we come. But, you know, and so when we're watching YouTube together, which we do sometimes, although he doesn't like it, I make sure, like, what do you like about this channel? why is this person interesting? What is he doing that's good? And a lot of times it's like, well, the sound quality is excellent. And I'm like, yeah, it matters. And so we talk about even in those cases, but I don't want to just go, oh, YouTuber, that's a dumb job, whatever.
Right.
Because I don't think it is, guys.
No, it's valid.
It's a valid job.
There's too many people eating because of that. Right.
And so, but just like I want anything that my children do to make a difference in this world, I've got to, say, okay, well, I don't understand it. It's not my thing. Like, I can't wrap my head around what's going on. But if that's what you feel like you're great at and you love to do, then I'm going to help. Let's talk about ways that we can make a difference using it. Exactly. A positive difference for the world. Right. And so, I think, whatever we do in word or in deed, we do for the glory of God. And if that's the principle we are living by, we're going to be just fine. Digital world, real world, whatever. And scene.
So I guess it all basically comes down to being a parent, not over relying on the tools, and again, engaging with your kid through whatever media, whatever means, all that sort of stuff, and just teaching them how to be the kind of people that God wants them to be. If you guys enjoy this, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. If you like this and the conversations that we've been having, we've got, let's see, wrong direction. Over here, we've got a couple of others that you might like. So please click on one of these. Be sure to ring the bell and get notified when we are talking about this and a whole bunch of other things right here on Church Training Academy. Take all the stuff that you've been learning here and use it to go change lives.